United Shapes Explorer Series Pioneer.
So this is the Good Ride review of the United Shapes Pioneer from the Explorer series. I rode the Deep Reach and had a pretty good time on it, but felt it was just like it was a very unique board. It wasn't something that was like bad or good. It was just very different for the shape and design that it was. It kind of surprised me. It had a much more mellow flex and kind of a more chill feel to it than you would think, but still had this kind of like, you know, despite its width and what it is, it felt very like gunny and needly, like it liked to go like this. And you know, the Pioneer, I thought it would be more of the same, but it definitely has a more different personality. It's still not a super stiff flex. It's like medium stiff, as you can just see, but it felt like it had a little bit more going on to it in terms of flex than the Deep Reach. The Deep Reach felt softer. This Pioneer feels a little more like a Pioneer, a little more scrappy, a little more you know, a little more aggressive. And in the first half of the day I was riding the K287, which is a super chill, mellow, easy flexing, tapered board. And when I got on this, I felt like I was coming back to the Orbit I own a little bit more in terms of, you know, that full camber feel. And I'll take a picture of this. And thanks to Gravity Sports at Mount Bachelor, they let me borrow this, and they've just been great. Mason, Ty, all you guys, thanks. And I just you know, I got out and it was a total flip. The second half of the day was so different. It really feels locked in compared to, you know, most of those hybrid camber boards out there that really just like have a lot of rocker in the tail and the nose, and then like a little camber between the feet. This has a lot of camber between the feet, going to some early rise and a big long nose, as you can see here. Yet when you take it switch, I think there's a good bit of taper. I think something like 18 mil of taper or something like that. But there's more taper than you would think for how well it rides switch. And yeah, it's a little washy off the tail, but coming from other tapered boards to this, you might feel it's a lot more front foot drivey, as opposed to keep it back here and kind of, you know, make sure that tail's in there. But it can slash a little bit. But it's got that aggressive, locked-in camber drive. You know, it feels kind of medium-ish, just you know, for its height, for what it is. It's a 56, I believe. And yep, 56. And I rode it with Atlas and Tactical ADVs. Union Atlas and Tactical ADVs kind of been my go-to this year, and it felt good. You know, the flex on this, you would think, you know, in a shop, you would go, yeah, this is kind of a medium stiff flex. But on snow, the flex seems to feel even a little stiffer, kind of like ramps up a little bit. And it's got lots of pop and drive. You know, when you flex that thing, it pops back. And that's what I love about United Shapes boards. They're not for the faint of heart. They need somebody who's either technical or aggressive, that can make that camber bend. They're not like your typical directional camber board. They really pack a lot of punch into it. Kind of like a lot of Burton directional camber boards. There's a healthy bow of camber before going to the early rise. And you know, and that makes the on snow feel kind of like really mean, really aggressive for its flex. And it's not something that's for forgiving riders looking for a forgiving board that wants to wash its turns. It likes to stay always on rail, and it likes to turn, it likes to carve, but you can go switch, you can get some air with this. It's it feels a little more flexible than the Orbit, which are kind of the two boards. I've only tried the Deep Reach, this Pioneer, and the Orbit. I'd love to try some of the other boards like the Gemini and the Cadet and a few others and really get to know it a little better, but you know, I got to deal with what I got. You know, so for edge hold, definitely an improvement over the K287. It felt like it had grip for anything, even the hard patches that I saw here and there. It was mostly spring slush, as you can see. But I feel like it's kind of cut off as kind of like medium hard, like hardish. The harder it gets, the more you have to dial back your turns. It's not like bottomless edge hold, but it's not grabby either. And I really felt this like grip well for the side cut. It doesn't look like there's any disruption or any weirdness going on, so that's what it is there. And turn initiation's pretty quick. Felt like it was medium quick, and it really I could really get it edge to edge pretty quick with, you know, with what I had going on there. You know, in terms of like overall turning experience, it's a super fun board to turn. It definitely has a unique personality. It has more of a drivey kind of like this kind of turn, but you can still turn side hill to hill. You can get across, you can, you know, make some tighter turns. I think I liked the turning experience on my Orbit just a touch more, but the Orbit was a little more aggressive, so it kind of, you know, it's kind of all about personal preference. You know, first off, talking about personal preference, my daughter would love this board because when you ask her what's her favorite color, it's a rainbow. That's her favorite color. And I kind of like this spectrum thing too. I think it's pretty cool. And I love the base. It's nice and black and easy to repair. There's only a little bit of die cut going on. But the one thing I would say about the base is today in sticky snow, it's not doing well. It was I couldn't keep up with Mason and Ty when I was riding with them. They just kept getting away from me and my board would just stop. And it's probably just because it wasn't tuned right, you know. It's just nice and smooth, so it was just getting lit, you know, just the ugly tongue would come up and lick this and stop it. That is spring conditions, late afternoon. You know, if it had a little, you know, little something going on there, maybe it would be better. But, you know, when it comes to a carve though, this just really springs out of a turn, and it has a very kind of like, I don't know, I called it a carving needle, as compared to the to my inner Orbit. That felt a little more like wider platform, a little shorter, a little more powerful. This felt, I don't know how to describe it, but it just felt, a little more gunny, where the Orbit felt a little more powerful and more wide, more stable platform. This feels narrower than its width, and it's got that long nose, and it just feels like, I kind of feel more like it's a little more like if you surf, it's a little more quad fin than tri fin. It likes to drive a little harder. It requires a little more power to get it to make those short slashy turns, but it does wash off the tail pretty well if you want to do that. And then, you know, so all in all, it's fun. The speed, like I was saying, it's, you know, it's just kind of like the same base like I got on my Orbit. It's great midwinter, but it definitely needs a tune for the summer. And then, you know, uneven terrain, I really had no problems weaving out in and out of mellow bumps. There wasn't much up there to speak of, but I could see myself, you know, hammering through a mogul pile, dealing with uneven snow. It has very good shock absorption. You know, obviously I'm riding with tactical ADVs that are super shock absorbent and a nice shock absorbent binding. But man, this it holds well. It like feels like it's that camber absorbs the shock, and it feels like it's damp enough to bomb if you want, but also kind of handle uneven terrain, handle all day messy resort conditions. So, you know, that's good. And then, you know, for powder, I know firsthand from people like Mason and who rides this a lot at Gravity Sports, that it floats really well in powder, and I don't see why not. I mean, my little Orbit floats really well in powder for what it is, and this just has a bigger, longer nose. It's a bigger size, you know, it's 4 centimeters longer. It has these slam back inserts, that tapered tail that'll come into play a lot more in powder than it will on groomers, and a lot more volume in the nose than the tail, as you can see. And I just don't see why this wouldn't be an amazing powder board. I mean, a lot of people probably wouldn't even take it off reference stands like what I was riding it today. A little wider than reference, probably about 22 and a half. And I felt like it had, like, you know, it has what it takes to be a good floater in powder and really spring off the tail and give you good directional air when you're riding out there, you know. And it feels like it ollied really well. It has lots of spring to it, so I think you could hit just about any size kicker you want with this thing. Jibs, I wouldn't do it, but I know some people who would, and I think it would do pretty good there. And I'd love to ride this in the pipe. It just feels kind of like that kind of board where it has that medium fast turn initiation for what it is, and I feel like I could just carve pipe walls really well with this thing. Probably wouldn't be my first choice, but if you want more of like a kind of a directional free ride kind of feel to your ride, but still want to be able to take it switch here and there, and have it do well for what it is, and be able to hit some kickers. I couldn't really butter this thing very well, but I'm a little tired today, so, you know, maybe on a better day I could get the tail to butter a little better. I mean, get the nose to butter a little better. The tail was pretty difficult, but all in all, it's a very fun board. I think I personally preferred kind of the more aggressive, technical feel of the Orbit, but this was I still like this a lot better than the Deep Reach, and I felt like this was kind of like the sweet spot in the line for me so far. I felt the Deep Reach was too soft, and I feel like this is just right for somebody who wants kind of like a forgiving flex, a forgiving-ish flex, but still a technical, locked-in feel and like drivey camber feel. This has, even though this has some early rise, it feels like there's more camber than a lot of full camber boards I've ridden in the past. So there you have it. That's the Pioneer.